My name is Alan Brawn. I'm a principal of Brawn Consulting, and Brawn Consulting really creates two functions. Number one, we do outsourced services, we do training programs, we do go-to-market strategies for all kinds of people in the digital signage universe. And the other part, almost the altruistic, the avocation side of it is we create the certifications for the digital signage industry, impartial, agnostic, vendor neutral, and we've been in partnership since day one with the folks at the Digital Signage Expo, creating this opportunity, and it's grown by leaps and bounds over the years. So that's kind of where we're at in terms of our connection to digital signage. Over the years, it's really kind of interesting. We have 4 certifications. We work with the DSE where we do 2 certifications before the show opens, 2 certifications the day after, and we've done this for a number of years. The interesting data is we've got over 18,000 people who've taken one or more of the certifications, and here's the important stat, in 64 countries so far. That's really, and we're about 7 years old, I think, now, and we are where we are because of the support of the Digital Signage Expo, the Digital Signage Federation, and then the manufacturers and distributors and end users of the industry have embraced something that they feel is a good fundamental education. But 18,000 people. And it's interesting, how I got that data point was we were here, I think, on the 10th anniversary of the DSE, and Angelo and I were talking, and we were talking about the diversity in the people that were at the event. And I know I did an interview with you, and you asked me a question about diversity, and I said, you know, the thing that blows my mind is I was doing a seminar, and I had like 70 or 80 people in the seminar, in a regular training seminar, and I said, I have people from 5 continents and 13 countries out of 80 people in a seminar, and that got me to thinking. So I went back into our database, and we get probably a third of our people are outside of the continental USA. We're getting people from India, we're getting people from Sri Lanka, we're getting people from Tunisia, we're getting people from Saudi Arabia. And so the real interesting thing is the incredible diversity of people that come into the DSE. And there's something else we've talked about over the years that bears repeating is the constituency. I've got one slide in one of my presentations, and we talk about the constituency. Most other trade associations and trade shows, with no denigration intended at all, basically focus on a manufacturer, they focus on distribution, they focus on resellers, and that's fine. If that's their objective, that's their paradigm, that's fine. This is one of the few, and I have no points of reference to say it's the only one, but this is one of the few trade events that this old man knows about, that we invite end users gleefully. We invite the manufacturers, the distributors, the resellers, the content creators, the advertising people, all of the creative community, all of the hardware community, all of the software community. And this whole show is a melting pot. I like to talk about, you walk the show floor and you run into people, and it's like, chances are if you run into somebody, they're probably not going to be a competitor, probably going to be an end user, probably going to have an interesting end user story to talk about, and may not even be from the United States of America. So it's just an exciting event. I do think that's what drives the energy every year, is the constituency, the variety of people that we have attend the show, and then of course the technology, the exhibitors drive that interest level to a new high. But it's kind of fun every year. One of the things that it kind of is interesting from my paradigm at this particular point in my life is I find that I can do research on the show before I come to the show. Then at the show you actually see, you can touch, you can feel, you can interact with. So I've done quite a bit of research in terms of what's going on. This is one of those shows this particular year that isn't revolutionary in nature. In other words, you're not going to come in here and you're not going to see a brand new display technology or some incredible new development in content management systems or this sort of thing. We're in one of those, we're out of the terrible 2 stages in digital signage, and we're into the point of kind of like a middle school mentality where we can learn, we can apply what we've learned before as we've gone through a process of maturation and all of this sort of thing. And so now when we're taking a look at what we see at the show now, the things that come to mind are we're thinking outside, as Kim Sarubi, God bless her, our former chairman of the Digital Signage Federation, she doesn't talk about thinking outside the box. She uses the phrase thinking outside the rectangle. And I love that. And that kind of would be the key phrase in what's going on in the show. People are beginning to think outside the norm, outside of the unusual, so that you look at something and it catches your attention. We're talking about advances in content. Steve Hargis just did a wonderful advanced content seminar, did a basic content seminar, followed up by an advanced content seminar, and he talks about the psychodynamics of how we look at content. So that's something that's going on here, an increased understanding of what's going on from those parameters and paradigms. Then we take a look at some of the hardware. We're getting in terms of direct view LEDs. I just wrote a white paper on direct view LEDs, and a direct view LED used to be only outdoor, and it used to be a very coarse and crude item. Why, you go on the show floor today and you see 1 millimeter direct view LED walls that you would be happy to watch the Super Bowl on from 8 feet away. So we're seeing new kinds of applications of older technologies as they evolve. So we're looking at that. We're seeing things like beacon technologies where you can actually come into an environment and automatically it goes to your cell phone or your smartphone, I guess is the proper way to put it. And people say, well, is it going to obviate the flat panel displays and the video walls? And my answer is no, not at all. As a matter of fact, it's going to enhance them. So we're looking at cellular mobile technologies, bring your own display. We're looking at that as a growth area. The analytics, the viewer analytics, very, very, very critical, big issue on the show floor. Everybody's looking at, okay, I've got a flat panel display or a projector. By the way, about 20% of digital signage is a projector. So we're looking at these kind of things, and then you go, okay, so I've got my hardware, I got my software and all of this, and everybody says content is king. Well, it's not. It's the crown prince. The objective of digital signage is the king. Content can be the crown prince in my vernacular. But you sit there and you look at it and you go, okay, now we've got this content, we've got this digital signage infrastructure. How do we quantify? How do we, not just a qualitative estimation, but a quantitative estimation, return on investment from that content? That brings to mind, how do we break down where the eyes are on a screen and how much dwell time is on a screen? You've got maybe 3 or 4 segments on a typical digital signage screen, and you've got 4 to 6 seconds to view that and make an impact. The advertising industry calls that an impression. I don't care about an impression. An impression means I see the screen. What we care about in digital signage is recall, right? I want to walk away from that screen. I've got a call to action and I want to recall it. So the psychodynamics of how that's all working with the viewer, and then being able to, with analytics, being able to assess the success or failure of our content is just extraordinary. So we see a lot of new things, but now we're getting into it's kind of like going from a fundamental course to a mid-level course to an advanced course, and now we're kind of in the mid-level, leaning to the advanced nature of digital signage. And it's as exciting today as it was when we met at the Digital Retail Expo, 11, 12 years ago. People don't like it sometimes when I lump all of these things at this show into the phrase, these are tools. And I preach the gospel that come to the Digital Signage Expo to see what tools there are. And a tool by definition is something you use for an intended purpose. And somebody says, well, what is that intended purpose? And my answer is, I don't know. That's the brilliant exploration, the journey you have to go through. But as you go on the show floor, you look at this, you look at that, you look at something else, and you go, wait a minute, that's something I can use for my end user, or if you're an end user, that's something that I can use to better state my objectives and make good on my objectives. And so all of this hardware, all of these are tools, and they're critical tools, and they're expanding tools and evolving tools. And the better your tool is, for anybody who's ever used a good hammer, a good screwdriver, a good wrench, if you use a good version of those tools, then it's going to make your life easier. Such is the case with the Digital Signage Expo. Digital Signage Expo, simply amazing.